everybody. If we could take your seats when you get a chance. I hope that you're enjoying the food and the drinks and the beverages and everything else and enjoying each other's company. I am about to speak, and the potential in there is I might give you indigestion. So, all right, welcome everybody. I am Don Wood. I get a chance to serve as CEO and president of the Muscular Dystrophy Association. A great thrill for me. I've been involved with the Muscular Dystrophy Association, goes back to, well, I was an MDA grantee back in the day. So I've been involved with MDA for almost 45, 50 years now. And I know many of you here, but many of you I'm meeting for the first time. And one of the things I'd like to do is not only welcome you to the MDA's tribute, what we call our tribute tour, but also to thank you. For those of you that I know, of course, but for many of you that I don't know, to thank you for all you do in your lives to help us advance the mission of MDA. You got to go back 73 years. I think it's interesting to think about what it was like for the families who had children who had been diagnosed with a disorder that no one knew what it was. In 1950, almost all the neuromuscular diseases, with a couple of exceptions, are genetic in origin. In 1950, they did not know what the genetic material was. That's the first thing. And in 1950, they did not know how muscle actually exerted force. Can you imagine the dream and hope of those folks who in those days, they started in New York, they looked all over the United States to find somebody who was working on muscular dystrophy. You know how many people they found? One. A fellow by the name of Dr. Aid Millerat. He was the only scientist physician in the United States studying not neuromuscular disease, but muscular dystrophy at the time. Tremendous hope. And they started it with a mission. The simplest mission you could have, but the most important one you could have, is to find a way to diagnose these diseases, and then find a way to treat these diseases, and then find a way to cure these diseases. And in the meantime, work with the families, because these are genetic diseases, and therefore they affect not just the individual who gets diagnosed, but also the family members become involved in almost all cases, Work to allow them to learn how to treat them so that they can live stronger, live better, and live more independent lives. These diseases also have another aspect to them, which is very challenging. They are progressive. They are progressive. They get worse over time. So it's not like someone has a particular disability or develops a particular problem, and you try to fix that. It just gets worse over time. And one family member expressed it, I think, best of all, is time is muscle. We need treatments fast. The faster, the better. The sooner, the better. And what's really amazing here is we have in our room, the people that we're going to pay tribute to, people who have actually taken, remember that I told you we didn't know what the material was, the genetic material and all that kind of stuff, how muscle worked. They've taken all that knowledge, we've moved it forward, and we are now in an era of treatment for neuromuscular disease. The FDA has put almost 24 FDA-approved treatments for neuromuscular disease approved in the last, 10 years? Did I get that right? We have people in the audience who actually knows this stuff, so I gotta be careful what I say. We need to give ourselves a big round of applause for that advancement given the beginning of where MDA was. We are now treating, and in some cases, and I can't even believe I am privileged enough to say this, but in some cases, the treatments are actually curing a genetic disease. And amazing, amazing advances. So Give everybody a big hand. Give yourselves a big hand. You see why it's so much fun to be able to lead MDA at this time? In an era of treatment, this is a dream come true, an absolute dream come true. The folks that we have here to honor tonight are among the key players that have made these kinds of things possible. It's not one person, it takes a team, oftentimes teams in different areas of medicine and science. One of the individuals you're going to meet tonight is Dr. Janet Woodcock. She is Principal Deputy Commissioner, Office of the Commissioner at the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. So what does that mean? It's a lot of words, right? What you wouldn't know is she's a pioneer. Basically, anybody that graduated medical school more than 3 years ago, 5 years ago, wouldn't have been trained in anything related to providing therapies for people with genetic diseases. They will have heard about it, but they wouldn't have actually done it themselves. And there were, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, but in 1986, when the first big advance happened with the discovery of the gene that actually caused the most severe childhood form of muscular dystrophy, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, when it was discovered, you know how many drug companies were looking, or biotechnology companies looking into developing therapeutics for neuromuscular diseases, muscular dystrophy, et cetera, in 1986? Zero, you're right, zero, none. Now how many do we have? Close to 250, maybe more. We have a huge pipeline of progress going on right now. But the problem with the pipeline of progress is that ultimately, if it's going to be approved, it's got to go through the FDA process. And the FDA's processes had never seen processes related to genetic disease. The gold standard in terms of developing treatments for diseases has been forever a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial. Now, we've all gone through COVID, and I think we all know, what that means in terms of, development for vaccines and others. There are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people being tested and evaluated. Genetic diseases, of which there are about 7,000, they aren't like that. They don't affect that many people. They are called rare diseases individually. Collectively, they affect millions, but individually, they collect a handful. And in some cases, so few that you don't have enough people to do that gold standard type of treatment. So you have to come up with something new when it comes to genetic diseases, something new, a way to evaluate them. And evaluate them with rigor, evaluate them based on science, evaluate them based on reproducible results, all of those good things. But you're not going to be able to do the double-blind control. And Dr. Woodcock is one of the individuals who led the FDA to take a new approach. And she can tell you more about it. I'm not going to go through it. But I'll tell you this, without what she has done in terms of accelerating approvals for genetic disease with new approaches to thinking about it, we wouldn't be here, I wouldn't be here talking about treatments. So let's give Janet a big hand even before she gets up here. Thank you. Then, of course, there is the gentleman that I've known for, 45 years now? 50 years? Dr. Rodney Howell, R. Rod Howell. Dr. Howell is an amazing individual. You're going to hear a lot of great stories about him. One of the things that he did that really helped change the directory of research into neuromuscular disease was he got behind an MDA program that we called MDA's Task Force on Genetics, at a time when no one was really didn't think that you could do genetics in human disorders. You could do it in Drosophila, little fruit flies, you could do it in nematodes, and you could do it in a lot of little animals, but you couldn't really do all that in humans. And Dr. Howell's vision was, you could, you should, and we did. So we'll hear more from Dr. Howell a little bit later. And then a gentleman that I met for the first time in person, I've heard about him. I actually talked to him once he was in a car on a cell phone, and I was on a phone, and we were, facing time each other, et cetera. But a remarkable fellow, but I heard about him as a legend kind of guy. And that is Mr. Paul Robinson, who is... when you mention the name Paul Robinson in about 50 states, they all cheer like that. This is a gentleman who is an absolute leader, advocate, champion, has raised I don't know how many millions of dollars over the period of time. He's a founder of the Fishing for Muscular Dystrophy, a unique approach. It's just I'll let you say your own words, Paul. I can't say it for you. And then another individual who, I don't know how many of you watched Jerry Lewis telethons back in the day, et cetera. There was a young man who became known nationally by the name of Matty Stepanek. Matty was a hero for his generation, and he was amazing. But he was only... Again, when you look at it, when you get to know Matty, et cetera, you wondered, how do you get to be so amazing? Well, then you meet his mom. Dr. Jenny Stepanek, better known as Mama Peace, the president of the Matty Stepanek Peace Foundation. She's here and will talk to us tonight. Just wonderful. Great to see you. And last, a physician that I met for the first time Thursday as she walked me through the MDA pediatric clinic here at Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., and totally blew me away. Her team that she has put together when the kids come in, I mean, we saw families coming in, children, everybody, and they're all buoyant. They're all excited. Literally, I'm not kidding you. I mean, Dr. Diana Barucha Gobel introduced us to families that they're treating. And they had one child, I think it was 2-year-old child, who had been diagnosed at birth with a form of muscular dystrophy called spinal muscular atrophy. And this particular form of spinal muscular atrophy, and it can come in different forms, up until recently, the lifespan was less than 2 years. 2 years. And here was a little 2-year-old bouncing around, jumping around, got crayons, drawing things, doing things. I mean, just a normal 2-year-old kid. Why? Because of the breakthrough in understanding genetic therapy for spinal muscular atrophy that occurred through the support of MDA and everybody else. It is one of the first and finest examples that we have, actually, that genetic therapies, actually fixing the genes, works. So huge excitement. And it was just a pleasure to meet her. Where are you? Where? I can't see you. There you are. Okay. Okay. Okay, by the way, I was given a script. Okay, it's got a lot of pages. I haven't started it yet. No. As I said, this is a new era, an era of treatments. One of the things that when I get a chance to go around and talk to a lot of folks, et cetera, one of the things that I talk to our clinic directors about on a pretty regular basis is this is a new era, a truly new era. When you diagnose someone with a neuromuscular disease now, what's the second thing you must do? The second thing you must do now is prepare them to enter a clinical trial. That's how much excitement and enthusiasm and progress we have made. It's an extraordinary moment in time. And it's an exciting moment in time. And we have built, the Muscular Dystrophy Association has built over several years a nationwide network of clinics, MDA clinics, that treat, I guess, I will not get this number right, but I know we have about 70,000, 80,000 visits a year at our clinic, with thousands of new folks being diagnosed with neuromuscular diseases. And what is extraordinary about these clinics is that they are, and this is a trite phrase, but I can't think of a better phrase, they are state-of-the-art clinics, meaning that when it comes to caring for individuals with a genetic disease, treating them for whatever treatments we have, et cetera, our clinics provide the finest care in the world. They really do. They know how to treat people, diagnose people, and support them. And one of the huge advances, great advances, that all by itself, even without treatments, but all by itself, helped improve the lives of folks with neuromuscular disease was the concept of a multidisciplinary clinic. The multidisciplinary clinic is where the family comes and then all the caregivers come to them. Instead of going from one physician here, driving 20 miles to a physician there, 30 over here, all the care is brought to one site. That's not only helpful for the families, it's also helpful for the caregivers, for the physicians themselves, because now they're talking to each other. The cardiologist can talk to the pulmonologist, can talk to the neurologist, and then all the other support teams. Why am I bringing this up? Well, this is the Muscular Dystrophy Association, so you won't be surprised to know that the person who began multidisciplinary clinics, who started multidisciplinary clinics, who finally got the administrations of the hospitals to accept multidisciplinary clinics, is here with us tonight, Dr. Stan Appel. Told you this is a cool movement. This is a great place to be. All right. I think I've come to the end of all the things that I really wanted to say to you. I could talk all night about this kind of stuff, but you're here helping us build the future. It's a bright future. It's an exciting future. It's a future that's brought hope to just countless thousands of folks. And it's an active future. I'm not talking about something that's happening, 2 years from now, 1 year from now. I'm talking about something that's happening 1 month from now. In front of the Food and Drug Administration right now, they're looking and evaluating the very first gene therapy for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Very exciting. Let's give a big round of applause for all the people that have made that happen. So again, like I said, it isn't some far future, it's an active future going on right now, and you're all part of it, and I really appreciate it. Okay, I am now going to, I suppose I have a slide, I think, we got before I bring up our honorees and presenters, I wanted to share a proclamation. We've been honored to receive from the Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. Is that up there? There it is. I won't read it all aloud to you, but you can see it on our screens. But I do want to thank Mayor Bowser for her recognition of our champions and their remarkable contributions to changing the trajectory of neuromuscular disease for thousands and thousands of people. Now, you just heard me mention him before. Now I want to invite him up on stage, Dr. Stanley Appel. I told you about one of his many contributions to advancing the field of neuromuscular disease. He is a true giant, not necessarily a tall giant, but a true giant. He's the former chair of the Stan Appel Department of Neurology at Houston Methodist. He directs the Ann Kimball and John Johnson Center for Cellular Therapeutics. He's a professor of neurology at Weill Cornell Medical College and the distinguished chair for the treatment and research of ALS at the Houston Methodist Research Institute. Please join me in welcoming a true giant in our field, Dr. Stan Appel.